Happy New Year. This is a very important announcement. Do not trust your government because they sure as hell don't trust you. What links the rape gangs of the northern towns with the Southport alleged killer of those little girls, and indeed the terrorist attacks in the United States yesterday and the day before? I'll tell you what it is. The establishment, the government, the mainstream papers, the lame stream broadcasters, they're all in league together, and they don't tell you the truth. They feed you absolute bullshit. And you know why? Because they don't trust you and me with the truth. That is why we're only now beginning to kick up a fuss about those girls, thousands of British girls, white girls, most of them, who have been raped, terrorized, sexually abused in the most foul way by largely Pakistani Muslim men. We weren't allowed to know the scale of it because we couldn't be trusted. That's what people like Gordon Brown, when he was the Prime Minister, thought. And of course, the architect of mass migration, uncontrolled migration, Tony Blair, is even now admitting that in the cabinet papers that most of his cabinet did not want to open the doors. We have been conned, we have been cheated, we've been lied to, and it's still going on now. Don't believe me? I'll come back to the abused girls in a moment. Let's talk about Southport. We were told that he was a nice lad from Wales and he was a British citizen and the rest of it. People went to jail. I'm not saying they should have rioted. I'm not saying that they should have attacked those migrant hotels, and the ones who were yobs did need locking up. But some people went to jail for using hurty words. When it's now become apparent that this man who's alleged, and I've got to say that at the moment, to have carried out the slaughter of those 3 innocent girls, and is up on 10 other charges as well, it's now come out that he had a terrorist manual in his house. It reminded me of that other one years ago, an asylum seeker. They said he was a kid. Turned out he was about 28 and he was trying to make a bomb in their kitchen. But anyway, back to the Southport guy. He had a terrorist manual, and it now turns out, surprises of surprises, he's actually now following the Muslim faith, according to prison sources. Why couldn't we know who he was? Why did they say, oh, he's a child, you've got to keep quiet? Now, we all agree with that, but he was about to become an adult in terms of criminal responsibility in just a few days. And then, of course, you've got to ask the question, how come he hasn't been on trial already? Those kids and men who and women, of course, women who rioted or certainly protested, they were in jail. They were in jail within a week. How come this trial's taken for ages? Oh, and what a coincidence. It's not going to happen till the 20th of January. The 20th of January? Oh, that's an important day. Why? Oh, I'll tell you why. Because the bloke who's accused of killing the British soldier, that's when his trial is. Oh, there's a surprise. And guess what? It's also the day that Donald Trump's inauguration happens. Where's the world's media going to be? Washington, D.C. You are being conned. You are being cheated by the establishment. I mean every element of the establishment, because they all play ball. Keir Starmer, when he went to Southport and laid that wreath with Yvette Cooper, are we really meant to believe he didn't already know who this person was? Are we meant to believe that? The police and the special forces would have been on that house within milliseconds. He would have been told within hours what was happening. But no, what he did as the ex-director of public prosecutions, which we'll come on to in a moment when we talk about the sexually abused thousands of young white girls, what he did was he basically arrested anyone who dared to suggest that this was terrorism or could be any way linked to Islamist fanaticism. This is not me having a go at all Muslims. This is me having a go at Islamist terrorism, which we have to stamp out. How many more incidents do you have to have before They trust us. So they didn't tell us who this person was. They went with this charade, right, that it wasn't terror, because they couldn't trust us. They thought we'd kick off. Well, on one level, one could understand why people might kick off if 3 little girls have been slaughtered at a Taylor Swift dance class. It's understandable people would be a bit pissed off, isn't it? But it doesn't mean there was going to be riots on the street. Why doesn't Keir Starmer, and not just him, all of them, the Tories, all of them, and the press, why don't they trust us? The ordinary, decent, silent majority on the whole, why don't they trust us? And I include the newspaper editors. They would have been brought into a room and said, look, da-da-da-da-da. They'd have been given it. They'd have been given more or less. Look, there's more to it than this, but Britain's a powder keg. We've got to be careful. And then Billy Big Bollock Starmer decides he'll arrest anybody, even if they just fart in public. Well, that's what it felt like. He really was doing the big one, wasn't he? Yeah? He's got the personality and the charisma of a damp poppadom, right? And I'm telling you, he's used this to bolster his image. That's why he's been traveling around the world. He wants to be a statesman. He wants everyone to think he knows everything. When the truth is, he knows sweet FA. He certainly doesn't know the British public. And it disgusts me that they try to keep us in the dark. And then all that happens, as Lord Carlisle has said, the terrorism expert, and indeed his own terrorism czar, that leaves a vacuum of information which can be fueled by extremists. The riots were partly the fault of Keir Starmer. They certainly weren't the fault of Nigel Farage. And it's happening again and again and again. How many times do we have an incident where you go, oh, that's obviously terrorism? I mean, maybe we shouldn't jump to these conclusions, but we do. And then they say, oh, we don't know who the person is. And then the next thing is, oh, it was mental health. Oh, he fell off a donkey at the age of 4. What was he doing on the donkey? But anyway, that's the bullshit they come out with. And we're meant to sit there and swallow it. I don't know whether you agree with me. I think it's an absolute disgrace. And of course, it's absolutely terrible. I've got a cold. I do apologize. It's even worse when it comes to these abused girls and women. Some of them as young as 11 were being routinely, anally, orally raped. They were having bottles pushed into their various orifices by these monsters. But you can't call them monsters because they say they're Muslim. They're Pakistani. Now, I don't think every Muslim kid's like that. Of course I don't, or every Muslim man. But we need to know who's doing it, and we can't tread on politically correct eggshells. That is why I'm so glad that it's only, 18 days until the president of the free world is back in the White House. He isn't going to take any of this SH1T, is he? No. You know, this attack on Trump Towers, the attack in Vegas, the attack this week, only this week, 2 attacks. Vegas and New Orleans. Bourbon Street, I've been there. Over 15 people dead. Now, we don't yet know if they were Muslims or renegade American soldiers. But either way, we need to know the truth as soon as possible and come down on them like a ton of bricks. Anybody who has raped or sexually abused a child, if they're not a British citizen, they've got to be deported immediately before their sandaled feet touch the ground. Are you with me or against me? Get in touch. You know how to do it. My email is john@johngaunt.com, or get on Twitter, John Gaunt, all one word. You see how it is, JONGAUNT. And if you're only listening on the video, on the audio, please excuse me, I'm blowing my nose. If you're only listening on the audio, don't forget I've now got my YouTube channel, John Gaunt TV, and that is where the live shows are going to be and all the guests and the rest of it. So if you haven't yet subscribed, do it now. John Gaunt TV. Don't forget it's JON. Right, that's enough of the adverts. Back to this story. So we've got a situation. I remember this. I was doing nothing talk radio at the time, or even local radio. When this story first broke, Anne Cryer, the MP, I think for Barnsley or somewhere up north, and she said this was going on. She was accused of being a racist because she dared to say it was Pakistani Muslim men doing it. And that seems to have been the prevailing attitude for the next 20 or 30 years. It has a real resonance, this story. I was in care when I was a kid, only for a short period of time. I was about 11 or 12. So it's the 70s. I tell you what was in the charts. Oh, I'm going to Barbados, typically tropical. So Google it and you'll get the dates. I was in care in Coventry, and there was a girl in care with me called Karen, right? And she used to go out at night with her boyfriend, who did happen to be Asian. She was a bit older than me. She must have been about 14. But it became apparent to all the kids in the home, the social workers were allowing this to happen. And she told me that she went out with him and he sold her. And at the time, I was a kid. I didn't really understand what she meant. It dawned on me later exactly what she meant. That she was being prostituted out. She thought it was okay. But how could she think it's okay? She wasn't a woman. She had the body of a woman, I'll give you that. But she wasn't a woman. She was a child. It's like when they talk about child pornography. It really winds me up. It isn't child pornography, because pornography sort of gives the impression that somebody gave permission to be in these things. Most kids haven't, so there's no such thing as child pornography. That's why all these things are linked. Hugh Edwards, that's why he should have been sent down, the filthy scumbag. But no, he got a suspended sentence. So then the bloke who was giving him the photos of children as young as 4 being penetrated, because this isn't just a Muslim problem, by the way, or an Asian problem, an immigrant problem. He's looking at those photos, and the bloke who made the photos with him, he then uses the defence, well, Hugh Edwards didn't get sent to prison, so neither should I. They should both be in prison. Disgusting, filthy dogs. And he should have had his pension taken off him. He's a sex offender. And do you see where I'm coming from with this? But at least we got to know who Hugh Edwards was eventually. But if he'd been a Muslim, I don't think we would have done. And this is what's wrong. This is where we've got two-tier justice with two-tier Keir. I mean, Keir's just basically got the Midas touch in reverse. Everything he touches turns to shit, doesn't it? The latest, he goes to Madeira on holiday whilst taking away the winter fuel allowance from 10 million pensioners, and his own party admits there could be 400 pensioners die this winter. He goes off to Madeira, where it's a balmy 18 degrees. Not content with that, he gets his chauffeur-driven car to take him to the top of the hill so that his 2 kids can go on the toboggan down the roads in Madeira. Lovely. But he pushes in. He pushes in. Who does he think he is? He's the Prime Minister of Britain. Yeah. Well, maybe he should spend more time in Britain. I was only surprised that he recognised his kids. He hardly ever seems to be with them. And I hear he's with his wife. Where was Lord Ali? Maybe he was busy helping Jess Phillips. She's the MP in the Labour government who's in charge of misogyny, fighting misogyny and women hatred and the rest of it. So if you wolf whistle a woman, which I don't recommend, but if you did, you could get your collar felt, right? Or make an off-colour joke about women. You could be in a big problem. Whereas when the victims in Oldham asked her, can we have a proper full-on public inquiry into child sex abuse of thousands of girls in their town, she said no. Oldham Council can do it themselves. Well, they won't have the money to do it, will they? And they won't do it. It needs to be nationwide. This was happening in Bradford. It was happening in City of Culture. I know. Stop sniggering at the back. Bradford, Rotherham, Coventry, Oxford, Aylesbury, Birmingham. Do you want me to carry on? Happening in every major city. Organised gangs raping and abusing young girls. And most of them were white. Imagine if it was a white gang doing that. We'd never hear the end of it, would we? And this is where it's wrong, two-tier Keir. Police everybody the same. Get them before 12 good men in true. And if they're guilty, bang them up. And if they're not British, chuck them out of the country. And if the crimes are so heinous, I mean, there's one guy, he's still not been deported. He's finished his sentence. He's still here. How? And I'm not going to just bash, excuse me a minute. I'm not just going to bash Labour, because Kemi, she's useless, isn't she? I think she's on chemicals herself. What a nutter she is. She's gone on about it today, jumping on the bandwagon. Oh, it's wrong. Well, I'm really sorry, Kemi, love. Your party was in power for 14 years. Why haven't you stamped on this? And Labour, why didn't you stamp on it when Blair was in charge or Gordon Brown? No, you kind of took the same view as top coppers who thought these girls were slags, whores, sluts. They deserved it. They were 11 or 12 years old. I mean, I hate this term grooming gangs, because I think what we should be calling them is child rapist gangs. However, the kids were groomed. They didn't quite understand. I remember talking to that girl in care, and I met her years later, actually. And she was a prostitute then. I wasn't looking for business, but I just met, you meet people from your past. She said they put her to work, and she thought that was fine. They kind of controlled her mind. I don't know whether she got viciously abused and all the rest of it, but I do know she was being sold out. But I also know she was in care because her dad was physically and sexually abusing her. So she started running away from home and all that. She ended up in care. Did he end up with a sentence? No. It's because she's a slut. She's a slag. She's a prostitute. She's a fucking child, you monsters. You monsters who have allowed these grooming gangs, these child rapist gangs, to get away with this for so long. You should be in the dock. You should be in the dock. And that would be top coppers, top social workers. And you'd have to ask the question, well, would the director of public prosecutions need to answer questions? Well, let me tell you, in 2011, that was the last year he was the director of public prosecutions. Who? Keir Starmer, our supreme leader. I'm not suggesting he's a paedophile, but I am suggesting he didn't take this seriously enough. He says, oh, well, we had different views on kids in those days and what they knew or didn't know. No, it's always been illegal to have sex with a child, Keir. Don't you know that? Oh, you too busy missing Jimmy Savile's case. I don't know, Sir Keir. Maybe I'm being unfair on you. But you were in charge. You were in charge. And now you're the Prime Minister. Why can't you bring pressure on Jess Phillips, who'd have you lifted for wolf whistling as somebody walked past the building site? She's saying no. And then she makes out she's Minister for Women. I'll tell you why Jess Phillips is doing what she's doing, in my humble opinion. In her constituency, she only won by about 600 votes. Do you remember? Labour were having a landslide everywhere else. But in hers, a Muslim guy stood up against her. And then there were allegations that these Muslim people had intimidated people to vote for him rather than her, for Jess Phillips. And then I saw Midlands today. She was on there and she didn't say anything because she doesn't want to upset the Muslim vote that she's already got. Well, you can put that right across Labour in those northern towns. They don't want to upset the radical Muslims or even the general Muslim population. Now, I don't want sectarian politics based on religion. Do you? We don't want to go there. We know where that ends up. But that's what they're worried about. They're running scared of that vote. So what I say is, this nonsense has to stop. When there's an attack or there's a murder or anything like that, and they think or they know, which is even worse, when they know the perpetrator, the person who's going to allegedly end up in trial for it, is Muslim or is Islamist, we should be told. We should be told straight away. It's not when they do that. Oh, and the police say the person was 6'3", da 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 da. Was he black? Was he white? The major idea, because you're not allowed to say that because that's not woke. I went on a BBC course once and they said, "Oh, do you know so-and-so?" And I said, "No." "Yeah, you do. You work with him in Coventry or Luton or something." And I said, "No, I don't know who you're on about." Big lad. Very good at Shakespeare, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then it dawned on me. They were talking about a guy called Joe. I said, "Oh, you mean Joe the black guy?" They nearly had a bloody heart attack. I said, "Why didn't you say he's black?" "Well, because that's racist." No, it's not racist. I'm fat. I'm old. I've got grey hair. That's an identifying factor. You have to say somebody's black or white or oriental. It's not racist, is it? But our police, with their rainbow-coloured boots and the rest of it, just tread on eggshells. And so therefore let the perpetrators get away with it. And this is wrong. Absolutely wrong. And it's two-tier policing and justice again. And then when we come back to those girls in those northern towns or Midlands towns, it was happening in Coventry. Why were their parents ignored? Because they weren't all in children's homes. I mean, I know the example I gave, she was in a home like me. But a lot of them came from very settled families, had met these monsters. One of them becomes their boyfriend. And then before you know it, she's selling herself. And then they're passing her around like a piece of meat. I'm not going to read out, you've probably seen it all on X, what happened. I mean, it's just horrendous. Just horrendous. And that's why I say whoever turned a blind eye to it due to political correctness, they need to be in court as well. And it's really interesting. I put this tweet on. Let me just read it to you. This was earlier today. How interesting and telling that this platform is on fire with discussion about the child rape gangs. But BBC News, Sky News, and the rest of the legacy media hasn't really mentioned it. I wonder why. I know why. Well, thank God for Elon Musk and him buying Twitter. Well done. Also, GB News for exposing it. And one of their reporters, Charlie, I've forgotten his surname, he's done a lot of this revelation about what's going on. And you know what the scary thing about this is? The scary thing is this. It's still happening. It's still happening. Don't think this is historic sexual abuse. It's still happening. And that's why I also said first thing this morning, can we stop calling these monsters grooming gangs? They are child raping gangs. Enough of the cover-ups and pussyfooting around. Let's put the children first. Let's put the children first. Where am I? I've lost it now. Put the children first and round up and deport the bastards who are guilty of these horrific rapes. Likewise, with these attacks in America, I also wrote today, we must display the same strength and resilience as the Cybertruck, that's the Tesla, where the bombs were in and the fireworks, which didn't blow up itself, it's still standing. We must have the same resilience as the Cybertruck in hunting down and destroying this enemy within, whether it's Muslim or not, whether it's just, whatever. It looks like the two incidents could be connected, but it doesn't matter the religion. They've got to be hunted down. There can be no compromise. No compromise. January the 20th and the real Donald Trump return to leading the free world can't come soon enough. God bless America. Those tweets are up there if you want to have a look at them. And that's what I think. No compromise. What we have to do, I've actually made notes, which is what I don't normally do on these podcasts, but I decided today I had to because it's so horrific and I didn't want to miss anything out. But we've got to show no mercy, no compromise, no cover-ups. That's why I say, don't trust your government. Don't trust the media, the BBC. I love the BBC over Christmas. They spent all that money promoting Gavin and bloody, what's it called? Stacey. Then it got 12.8 million viewers. Well done. But then I reckon if you'd put old reruns of my plays, they might have got that if they gave it the same plug. They were constantly being plugged. There was more plugs than the East Midlands Electricity Board. Even in news programmes, here's an extra. Let's interview him. He was an extra on Barry Island. The day before yesterday, they did on the weather in Barry Island. It's like, you what? It's a comedy show. They didn't go to Torquay, did they? And speak to people who are extras in Fawlty Towers. It was a complete abuse of their power. And see, this is what the BBC do, and Sly News. They do that when it's one of their programmes. We got record figures, yeah, blah, 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 blah. They even had a documentary on it last night. It was vomit-inducing. But then they follow the agenda the government give them. There ain't no real journalism. There's no real journalism. They just follow slavishly what the government said. That's why nobody in the mainstream press. She had that thing where they said no one can talk about the boy, who's accused of the Southport killings. It would be, against court privilege. It's nonsense. And then the Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle, who's just had first-class tickets or something to go to Barbados, he then stopped any discussion of it in Parliament, the mother of all parliaments. Richard Tice was going to ask a question. He was severely warned not to. That's not the kind of country I want to live in. That's not our country. Who are these social engineers? Well, I'll tell you who they are. They've all been on the Common Purpose scheme, along with the chiefs of police. Don't forget, you can't get above the rank of sergeant unless you've done the Common Purpose course. So they come out as basically the same. They all come out as, be kind, be a socialist, look at everything, be progressive. But they all spout from the same hymn sheet. And now they want to do it even more in schools. I see that woman, she talks like a robot. She's very much like the Chancellor woman, like Rachel Thieves. Not her. Who's her name? Belinda. I don't know what her name is. Anyway, there must be a factory where they're making these women, right? She looks so bitter and twisted and uptight all the time. Bridget, that's her name. But Bridget has basically said Shakespeare's too triggering. Shakespeare's too complicated. We should talk about the beauty of diversity. Well, yes, but there's also some horrendous things about diversity. And I'll tell you something else. William Shakespeare, the greatest playwright the world has ever seen, not just in this country, the world has ever seen. He talked about a human condition. And do you know what? Sometimes, Bridget, the human condition sometimes is pretty nasty. And that's why you need to discuss it. And that's why I thought that adaptation of Shylock just recently by the woman who was Den Watt's wife in EastEnders was great. It was a different version, different idea, playing with what Shakespeare was saying. But you don't change it. You don't have a trigger warning saying, Othello's black. It's just nonsense. But that's what these people want to do. They want to go further and further down this line so that our kids are brainwashed. So they all come out with the same woke rubbish. It's just wrong. Kids should go to school to learn how to think. It's like when I go to university. I fall out with quite a few of my audience who say, people who do degrees that definitely get them a job, they should get a bigger grant. No, they shouldn't. University is about letting your head expand, or it should be, and your head taking completely different views. So then you can shape who you are going forward. That's why too many kids are going to university. We don't need this idea that it's got to lead necessarily to a job in what you study. But then I would say that I spent 3 years learning how to be a tree and studying drama. But I met the most weird and remarkable people who challenge my views. And that's what you need. That's what education is about. But not now. And it's not, as I say, I'm not just attacking Labour, because nobody has broken step with them. The Tories, they're just as bad as them. Kemi, we need to sort it out. We're going to stop the boats. How are you going to do that then? Love. Sorry, I'll be up on a charge with Jess Phillips for that. I just think we are being lied to. We are being conned. And I'll tell you something. Those white girls of Bradford, Oldham, or Rochdale, or Rotherham, Coventry, Aylesbury, Oxford, etc., etc., they have all been sacrificed on the altar of political correctness and the culture of woke, where we're scared to call out who's done it. They are majority Pakistani Muslim men. We need to say that, and we need to lock them up. And some of these offences, like the killer of little Sarah the other week, her dad, he should have swung. What is the point of him getting a 44-year sentence? Kill the bastard. Kill him. Like these men who they've raped and abused on this level. Kill them. Or certainly say, chocks away, Stelios, and deport them. We don't want them in this country. We want people who want to live here and prosper. That's why there's big row in the States at the moment about, do we give jobs for people's visas? Well, yes. I think we should still be encouraging the best and the brightest of people, if they're from India or Australia or Jamaica, wherever. I don't care where they're coming from. Eastern Europe. If they're really bright, really intelligent, and, going to get a good job, that's the kind of immigrants we want. What we don't want is some bloke getting on a life raft and coming over. What are they offering? I mean, a few of them, I'm sure, are professors. Some of them will be engineers. But the overwhelming majority aren't, are they? And we're not even vetting them. And then we're giving them the best hotels that we can find. There's hotels in Coventry and Warwickshire at the moment. I've talked about it the other week. This is unsustainable. Unsustainable. But I don't see the political class dealing with it, because it's not going to affect them. It's not going to affect Keir Starmer. His kids are still going to jump the queue to get on the toboggan in Madeira, aren't they? He's still going to get his free suits off Lord Ali and his glasses and his wife's dresses. Don't trust them, because they don't trust you. And that's the thing that really sticks in my gullet. They don't tell us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. They try to manufacture it, mold it, massage it, because they think we're animals. But there's been no real evidence, has there, that the so-called far right, because we're all far right according to Sakia, do anything at all. The threat, I'm afraid, there is no real threat from the far right. And if there is, lock them up, put them on trial, put them in prison. I'm all for that. But I think the threat is actually from radical Islamist nutcases, isn't it? Whether that's a threat to girls, women, or whether that's a threat to the general population by shouting Ali's snack bar and blowing themselves up in a pizza parlour. That's why we need Trump. We need Trump to lead the world and say, we ain't taking this. We are not taking this. And we need to control our borders. If you're a country and you haven't got a proper border policy, you're not really a country, are you? Huh? You're not. You're basically just a waste bin for the rest of the world. And I don't blame individuals wanting to come here, making their lives better. I've always said that. I'm all for well-controlled, managed immigration. But the power of shite that's been in charge for the last 40-odd years, they haven't given us that, have they? Tony Blair went, woo, all come in. What did Mandelson say? We went out hunting them down. We wanted to rub white people's face in diversity. And I see he's back. That's unbelievable, isn't it? How's he going to be the ambassador to the US? Trump ain't going to take that nonsense. They've already called him a moron. Mind you, most of our cabinet have called Trump that as well. Lammy. I mean, how does Lammy become foreign secretary? How does Bridget the midget become in charge of education and telling us Shakespeare's a baddie? Can you imagine in any other country in the world they'd go, oh, I don't like that Moliere, the French. Let's ban it. Yeah, let's revise it. Let's change it completely. In Russia, Chekhov. Oh, he's a bit boring. He's a bit snobby in play. Oh, get rid of him. He wouldn't do it. We should be teaching kids Shakespeare and making them understand it. What do I know? What do I know? Huh? Do you have a good Christmas? Anyway, that's me finished. Look, if you like what I do, please support me. You can do it simply. It's on the bottom of the video at the moment. It's www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. Remember, it's JONGAUNT. We're just about to get some adverts as well for the audio podcast, so that's good stuff. So we're getting there. This is going to be my year. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And people keep saying, oh, yeah, Gaunty, you'll be back on the mainstream. But don't particularly want to be on the mainstream, apart from the paycheck, to be honest, because I'm enjoying what I'm doing, saying what I want. And by the way, this isn't my house. It's not my gaff. It's all done with visuals. I got the lighting better today, don't you think? Anyway, that's enough of my rubbish. But I am so disgusted with our political class. And when I say political class, I mean the media as well. They're all playing us. They're all cheating us. They're all lying to us. They're not telling us the truth. So I say, don't trust your government. No matter who you vote for, don't trust your government until they trust you, because they certainly don't trust you at the moment. If you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, keep telling them you love them. There'll be another podcast tomorrow. Thanks for helping me get back. And thanks for making it successful. I appreciate it. Cheers. Bye.